Ooh, brand new, most powerful V6 from Honda.
This is the biggest SUV they've ever built.
And it's also the most powerful V6. Think about that. This has a more powerful V6 than what was in the original NSX, which was a sports car.
That's kind of weird to think about.
It is weird, yeah.
This is the Honda Pilot, the all-new Pilot. When car companies say all-new, usually it's like, we added a trim level and we did a few little things, and now even more colors are available. This is actually all new. It's been completely re-engineered. And good news, everybody, for the first time, the Pilot isn't a minivan wanting to be an SUV. It's actually an SUV, and this is the Trailsport, which means it's actually kind of focused on off-road, so we're on our way.
For the first time ever, because I don't know if you remember, but the Trailsport trim was introduced on the last Pilot, and it was introduced pretty much as just a trim package. It wasn't really any more off-road capable.
I think it was just the badge, actually.
I think it was, and the thing on the seats in orange that said Trailsport. That's really all it was.
That's as much off-road capability as you get.
But with this gen, they've actually thought about it. It has a 1-inch extra lift. It comes with the knobbier all-terrain tires. It also has skid plates. I mean, they actually thought about someone might take this somewhere off-road and actually get it dinged a bit, which the last version was just, we gave you an off-road trim, which is interesting.
They thought of Interstate 80 with all of our potholes from the giant winter that we had.
That's true, yeah.
It's actually some off-roading out here, so we're better equipped than anybody else.
We're accidentally doing off-roading already, even though we intend to get on dirt.
But bashing over these poorly maintained potholes, and you think, oh, I've got the Trailsport, it's no problem.
It's gonna be fine.
Great cars, great roads, and all the reasons we love to drive.
Road trips, comparisons, test drives, and podcasts. This is Everyday Driver.
Surprisingly, between shooting our interview and the rest of our footage, this Pilot bricked itself in my driveway. It would acknowledge that the key was nearby, but it would not start or even go into neutral. As a result, it had to literally be dragged off my driveway and onto a flatbed because the wheels were locked and would not turn. A trip to the dealer revealed a bad cell in the battery, which triggered a fault in the ECU. That got addressed, and it came back to us to finish the shoot. There's a first time for everything.
Yeah, this is a bit different for Honda. This is a bit different feel, and it did feel big as soon as I started driving it. But as I'm digging in, I'm starting to see it more and more. Now, the Trailsport is a standalone, kind of very focused now, off-road package. And Honda says that this is capable of navigating more than half of the trails in the U.S. on public lands. And that means they have done a lot of research, they've done extensive testing, they've really re-engineered the entire structure of this thing to do what they're thinking, and that is, hey, off-roading is becoming a thing. This is the ultimate car camper. You can take this more than just your average fire road. And I do see that, because the last Pilot, this is the 4th generation, right? So the last 3rd generation Pilot, that looked like a minivan. The proportions were off. It was unremarkable in any way. And to compete in a category like this, they even acknowledge they're 3rd right now. They acknowledge that, and they're going for it, though, with this particular trim level. If you want something that is this space and big from Honda, there's 6 trim levels, and the 2 above this are more expensive, but then if you're just going to use it like an SUV, then get those. So we can't just drive this as if this is never going to be off-roaded.
But to your point, I mean, there really isn't a reason to buy this trim unless you are a person who does like family car camping trips. I don't know how on earth Honda actually quantifies, we think this will do half the off-roading situations in the nation. I don't know how you test that, but to their credit, they went a lot of different places in the US and they tried a lot of things to actually make sure this was capable enough for most people. And nobody's buying a Honda Pilot at all to go actually like Moab, let's do trails. Nobody's
Certainly
doing
not.
that.
No.
So that means you're talking about the heavy-duty fire road. We're going down something with some rocks
The suspension
to get
is
to the
tuned
camping.
so the coolers won't spill.
Yes.
That's about as much as it is.
And the tires won't break.
No, Honda has said specifically they have worked with the Nevada Automotive Test Center to come up with their own rating system and rate their own vehicles using the trail rating capabilities of that test system, and therefore they can apply that now to most of the testing they've done, which is great, and it is significant. But again, it's not like you're going rock crawling this thing. You don't need to.
No.
But with the added rigidity to this, it makes the last one seem like a wet noodle soaked in a cup of tea. And this one seems like, okay, it feels now kind of like what I'd expect a Honda to feel like.
It does feel significantly better put together and just more solid. There's no question about that. And I would actually define the last Honda Pilot as like the definition of the term soft roader.
Totally.
It looked soft, it felt soft. It was a minivan alternative from a company who made an excellent minivan.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. The thing I do appreciate about this new Trailsport trim being actually set up to be off-road is I feel like it gives the Pilot something that differentiates it from the excellent Odyssey.
Yeah.
Because I have struggled with the Pilot being, why didn't you just get an Odyssey? This just feels worthwhile and substantial now, and it's almost a 3 inches longer wheelbase, and most of that was given to the second row, but the third row seats are actually surprisingly high off the floor. The problem is they're almost always on the floor, and so my ankles are up by my butt. I mean, that just never feels good if you're an adult.
Right.
You could be an adult and sit in the back.
Yeah.
Which is kind of surprising. I mean, I don't want to go cross country, but like, we're going to take people and the adults in the back? Okay.
Matter of fact, I had my whole family in this.
Yeah.
And a cello. We thought about coming by your house and grabbing all your dogs and maybe going through a drive-through.
Sure,
and,
as you should.
Let's really test this and put it to its limits. But what I have liked about this is the compact exterior size, and it still seems pretty spacious. I was getting no complaints from anybody who rode in the third row, and they even kind of enjoyed that armrest. My sister actually specifically called out that armrest cutout in the back because it made it feel a little bit more spacious.
Interesting. Okay. Also, Trailsport versus normal. The normal version gets a second row that can have 3 seats across.
Right.
The Trailsport does not. The Trailsport just comes like this with the 2 captain's chairs, but most of them have a center seat in the second row that can fold into the floor if you don't need it, or pop out if you do, which is impressive.
I mean, they're good at
Honda
that.
knows how to do storage and how to do like pockets, and I mean, I've always said, if you get into a Honda product of any kind, and you are able to fill it with stuff in your life, you have too much stuff. 14 cup holders in this. 14 cup holders.
You counted, didn't you?
I did actually set it on the press materials too.
Oh, okay. All right.
There's 8. There's like 8 that are 32 ounce. What? How much liquid are we bringing?
We are thirsty.
We are thirsty Americans.
In the
yes,
US,
we are.
thirsty people here. We're on one of our favorite dirt fire road kind of off-road. It's been pretty packed down.
Yep.
But you can already tell the suspension is definitely tuned for this. Because as soon as I started driving, I thought, oh no, this is too squishy. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
There's other flavors of this, and this is not air ride suspension. It's tuned specifically for this kind of thing. This price point is $50,500, about that, just over $50,000.
Yep.
The Touring and the Elite are more expensive. And even though this is only one engine offered, only one powertrain, it's mid-level, but I feel like Honda has really tried to do a lot for your money with this.
The problem is that these 7 or 8 passenger, unibody SUVs, that's what they cost. $50,000 is just, that's what they cost. And while that feels exorbitant, the reality is a nice minivan is going to cost almost that as well. So this is what all of these things cost, which is crazy, but this is very competitive at that place, and I think it's much more competitive than the last Pilot was.
Oh, by far.
This is
night and day.
This is a revised V6 engine. It's 285 horsepower, 262 pound-feet of torque, which is a good amount of power through this same push-button gearbox that is a 10-speed. This is like a revising of a lot of what worked on the last one, but an improvement in a more rugged way. I think it's a really good improvement.
I don't love that there is only one engine option. I wish there were an option that gave you better fuel economy, because combined this is 20.
You're right. There isn't enough way to amortize out options, and so this is only 1 inch configuration. That makes it not that quick. We're talking 0 to 60 in a little under 7 seconds, that's traffic speed.
Yes.
But you're not buying this for power. Some of the others in the market might impress you with their power. This is just going to be enough.
It'll be enough, and when we're full of people in gear, you can tell.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not sluggish, but this still offers you 5,000 pounds of towing capacity, which is pretty much most toys, most stuff that you're going to going to do.
That solves for most people, you're right. You can get more. There's certainly, obviously, you can do small pickups and you can do things like a Cayenne that have more, but I mean, 5,000 is a usable amount. What you don't want is getting less than that. A lot of people have only 3,500. 5,000 is decent.
Exactly. So let's look at the styling. This is remarkable, whereas the third generation was, don't even look at it. You didn't even notice it. It was so not pretty, so unremarkable.
It was very soft.
It looked like a minivan with doors that open normally. But this, I like when Honda does their signature separated window. It feels very first generation Ridgeline to me.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
All right,
that third window, the C-pillar window back here.
Okay, yeah.
I like that it's separate and not just one part of the DLO, like the Grand Highlander or like most SUVs. It's just one blacked out opening. They black out the pillars, so it just looks like one shape there. But here it's a separate shape, and that actually makes the Pilot unique. It makes it look, it's got a bevel on it, and it looks like they're harkening back to that Ridgeline. You know how it was beveled along the bed edge right there? So I like that is a signature look, and it's a vertical front end, so it's very tough and bold, yes.
The last one was so rounded and soft. It really helps for them to have gone with this, for sure.
This makes it feel like they've got an opportunity to run with this and make Hondas that are very tough and bold, and this is kind of the start of that, I feel like. And even the rear taillights are kind of a Honda signature now. I like the shapes. I like that it is different than Mazda's, and you don't think it's a Toyota. And what is this? Honda, you've done well with exterior styling. Bold shoulder line. You can't go crazy with the styling on these kinds of things. It's not why you buy them. But it has to look decent, not in this steel gray color, but yeah.
In this color.
HPD bronze package. You can get the bronze package on
In this color, with the fender flares, the cladding, I looked at it quickly and I thought, you know what I think was on the wall? It looks better, but you know what I think was on the wall?
Subaru website?
The Subaru Outback. I do. If you look, because the Outback is a wild bestseller for Subaru, and it has a surprising amount of space, and so kind of inexplicably, it competes in this market, the I need to go car camping market. It's one of the kings there.
Yeah.
If you're going to compete in that market, here's the Trailsport. Thankfully, it's an actual trim now that is actually worthwhile, but I think somebody at least was glancing at the Outback as they were styling this.
You know they were.
So I think that's interesting, but it's such an improvement on styling, and I'm very pleased with the use of space. That's what Honda has always done so well. I like that they have taken Trailsport and made it an actual trim that means something.
It now means something in this.
Yes, on a big usable unibody SUV that feels like it's got some backbone now. The last one did not.
Let's jump into the interior. The IP is fairly unremarkable.
Yes.
It's very clean and simple, but you do get a nice package shelf up here for all your stuff, sunglasses and phone, and the screen here. I kept thinking, like, man, I want a bigger screen. Wait, no, I don't. No, I don't want a giant screen that dominates. That's plenty.
Fair.
That's enough.
I agree, yeah.
And it looks stuck on, but that's how it's also in your field of view, which is nice. So a lot of just clean, simple kinds of approaches here. There's just the HVAC controls are very easy to figure out.
Yes.
As you said, lots of storage. But then you climb into the back seats, and whereas a company like Hyundai and Kia puts the USB ports to charge your phone, well, that adds cost.
Sure.
But Honda has a nice slot for your phone. And people noticed, oh my gosh, my phone isn't going in the magazine slot, now it's buried
down
forever.
At the bottom, I'll never see it again.
It's just a place for your phone that prevents your phone from slipping down there and disappearing forever. So yes, little touches. They're starting to really do that and do it the Honda way. And
Honda knows
tell
storage. They really know storage.
They do. So I really appreciate this interior, even though I want more interesting visual elements. I want less piano black. I want more metal in here. I want, something more rugged. Maybe a piece of it is, a shredded hiking boot, or I don't know, something just
driftwood center console.
Maybe, yes, something like that. But on the other hand, that would add cost.
It would, yes.
And you can see that Honda is very focused on making this. Let's carry people. Let's carry gear. Let's make it good to drive.
Yes.
And now this one, let's make it decent off-roader.
Yeah, and there's nothing about it that's remarkable to drive. It drives like this market segment, which is people mover, but it does feel, unlike the last Pilot, I don't keep coming back to it, this feels rugged in a way the last Pilot did not, that made me go, why not buy the minivan?
Yeah.
This, I'm like, okay, all
We're
right.
beyond the trim package now. This is, I mean, just the trim
You're right,
thinking. This is actually truly like, okay, I could maybe we could drive down there. I don't want to.
Don't think we drive back up, but we could drive down there. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Get down there and maybe halfway back up. Get some little bit of speed, but I don't know.
You want to try it? It's your turn to drive.
I just don't want to
Sorry, Honda.
show Honda the pin drop on the map where their vehicle is located, because
that doesn't go over
as
well.
good as it is, every vehicle has its limits, right? But this does feel like you want to kind of get after it.
Yeah, agreed.
Bit. So I do like that.
Your turn.
All right, here we go.
Do you think we could ever reach a place where the H is actually the actual framing of the grill? The grill is just one big H?
My classmates in design school were doing that very thing. They were making the entire subframe like an Ariel Atom, but it was an H shape all the way. That's coming. I mean, imagine if Honda adopted Jeep Wrangler kind of thinking for this. Little Easter eggs, and they kept doing nice touches and making it continually off-road for the Trailsport kind of package. I could see that. This feels like the very beginning of that future. But, I appreciate it where it is now. And what they've done is give you drive modes. Now, as I mentioned, the suspension is not air suspension.
Nope.
It is fixed. It is tuned. You mentioned the +1 inch ride height, tuned for off-road.
Has the all-terrain tires. Has a full-size spare, which you never.
Yeah, that's true.
You never get a full-size spare in this market segment ever.
Independent rear suspension back here. So they give you all these drive modes right down here. And 7 different modes: normal, econ,
a lot
snow,
more than I'm used to, actually.
trail, sand, and tow. So
I wasn't
trail
even in trail. I was just
still
driving. I was
capable.
fine. Look at that.
All right, so here we go. We're in trail. What I would like more from this engine is when you're in sport mode or when you're using the paddles, that it would allow you to rev the engine a little bit more. When
it doesn't want to rev.
It's just playing it safe with the engine.
Well, and also it's trying to get you miles per gallon, which, let's be honest, isn't good to begin with.
It's not
good. I mean, 23 maybe on the highway, 18 in the city, a 20 combined, as you mentioned before. That is, honestly, right now, that is probably the biggest hit I have against this, because almost everybody else does better than that.
They do. Not all of them cost more, but many of them do. Yeah. This feels like Honda is offering something in this category that's a standout. It might not be all the things. Like I mentioned, like USB ports, it costs more, but they've re-engineered the seat frames. I don't really love the length of these seats. My legs are too long. Yeah. But for most people, I think it'd be just fine, and they're pretty comfortable.
Yep, it's definitely a seat improvement. That's one of the things that Honda called out as something that they worked on. They worked on a lot of stiffness in this vehicle. I mean, like the section they increased the stiffness. The least was 20%. Some places it was as much as 60%.
What were you doing on the prior generation?
The prior gen was made of tinfoil, apparently.
Like old cereal boxes?
Possibly. So I mean, they really thought about this. I mean, what I like is that it is easy to offer something like this in multiple trims that don't have any variation. And again, this is a trim that does have variation, which means you can get the nicer, softer version if you're never going to do it off-road.
And just having one engine option kind of keeps the price down.
It will.
I can see that
for Honda and all of their dealers and their warranties. It's one engine.
I feel like Honda has truck thinking, Jeep Wrangler thinking here, rather than let's make just another SUV. Because I think it's easier to make the just on-road passenger versions of this after you make the Trailsport, after you make the off-road.
Okay, all right, I see where you're going.
Think off-road first, think structural rigidity,
then
think
make it
suspension
nicer.
and clearance, and then for the passenger-only versions, that's easy.
Honda has always been a company that we like the way they think, and we are intrigued by their build quality. We never liked the prior Pilot, though. That's the thing.
Never.
It was always the one in their lineup we were like, really? And this has actually elevated it, which is good.
Never really liked the Passport either.
Yeah, but the new Passport's good for many of the same reasons that this is.
Yeah. So right here on the end, when you're doing some off-roading, you've got the camera. And for various inclines, as soon as you push it, it'll activate the cameras. Going too fast.
Going way too fast.
At low speed only.
Nobody off-roads at this speed. Are you kidding?
I'm going to off-road through the neighborhood now. See, there we go. Cameras are on. And this you can choose various angles, so you can actually look when you're rock crawling. I mean, that to me is like Jeep Wrangler thinking.
It is, for sure. It's them really thinking about what does somebody that's off-road really want and need. And this isn't, as we said before, this isn't really the kind of thing you buy if you're serious about that. But if you are family camping then it's serious enough.
What's cool about this torque vectoring system is it can throw up to 70% of the torque to the rear and then 100% left and right.
Yep.
And it's far more efficient. I mean, Honda has definitely spent a lot of time refining things, making things more efficient as far as the powertrain and how it uses power and distributes it. That's why you've got all these modes, and that's why they are pretty different and they're useful for that. So I like the refinements, but yeah, they had to start with this entire new shell, its chassis.
Yep. And you don't drive any of these looking for driving dynamics. That's not what it's about.
No.
I mean, this is about hauling and usability, and this is really doing all of that well. And frankly, the last Pilot did a lot of that stuff well. It was just a snooze fest to look at and to drive.
Yeah.
This has got a little bit of personality now and looks pretty cool.
Yeah, see, corners like this, you're probably going to want the passenger version, not the Trailsport.
Fair, yeah.
But I like that Honda has carved this out and made it its own thing.
And what's your usage? I mean, you have to think about how you're really going to use it, and that's a big question mark. Or if you're a person that's coming from a more traditional body-on-frame SUV, this isn't going to feel like a lot of body roll to you. And it might be, this might be the bridge car that bridges the gap between a more traditional body-on-frame big SUV and the unibody world. This feels more like the way those body-on-frames actually move on their suspension, but it's a unibody underneath.
It's not thrashy. And there, now we're moving.
Yep.
It's not going to snap your neck, but
No.
the only car from Honda that will is the Civic Type R, so.
True. But here's the other thing about Honda, though. I think we've always thought of Honda as little vehicles. And this isn't little.
Yeah.
This is a big American-thinking SUV. I mean, think about the first Honda Civic. It was like, it's pocket-sized.
Yeah.
And Honda has had to revise as things have happened. And now the Civic, to your point, is surprisingly big. Then you have the Accord
That's
above
true.
it. And this is the biggest, most powerful SUV Honda's ever made. They are actually embracing large vehicles, and they've done this well.
They have. I'm thinking about the Nissan Pathfinder as a competitor.
Yeah.
And we like the Pathfinder.
Yeah, it was good. I think the Pathfinder has a nicer interior, but I believe the build quality of this is better. This feels more tightly put
It
together.
does feel more substantial here. I think I'd rather be here. And I like the Pathfinder.
Yes, agreed. We liked it quite a bit.
Huh. All right, so we're back to off-roading on Interstate 80.
We are, yeah.
All right, not for you, not for me, but what's the family vote here? What's the family scale vote? 8,
No,
9?
I think seriously, if you need an 8-passenger SUV, then you get the non-off-road version of this, and you have the option with the seat here.
Yeah.
If you are a family that you go off-road camping regularly, this is a great, legitimate offering from Honda now.
Just want these seats to be longer since we're freakishly large.
Yes, well, they're definitely tall, but I think they are improved. I always want more bolsters than most seats have,
Yeah.
and these are not. That's not what they're designed for.
They're designed for sitting here and eating.
Yes.
You're going to be snacking.
14 cup holders, and 8 of them will take 32 ounces.
You are going to be eating.
That means every person in the car can have a 32-ounce something and an extra cup holder for something else.
Snacking
It's like
gets-
7-Eleven run. That's like job 1. Bought Honda Pilot, headed to 7-Eleven. That's our Saturday.
The Honda Pilot, where snacking is serious.
Yes.